So, welcome to LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. Thanks for joining me. It should be a good show tonight. This is my weekly broadcast of the best clips from the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the corporate media here in the United States, along with my commentary between the clips. And this week, in addition to the Sunday news shows from the regular Big Five outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, I'll also be using some quasi-news clips from HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher and from the season premiere of NBC's Saturday Night Live last night. And I'll mostly be covering the big topic of the week, which was the looming government shutdown here in the United States that's only about 24 hours away right now. And I'm also going to play a few clips at the end on this new diplomatic breakthrough between the United States and Iran. But first, I want to start with Bill Maher commenting on Senator Ted Cruz's non-filibuster filibuster last week that's trying to get Obamacare defunded with the threat of a government shutdown. And Bill Maher made the interesting analogy that you can see here.
Let me ask about Ted Cruz. Now, I did a joke in there where I mentioned him in conjunction with Miley Cyrus. I did that because I was thinking the other night, he reminds me of Miley Cyrus, Ted Cruz, because he is not afraid to incur the wrath of even some of his fans for the greater good of drawing attention to himself. I really think that a filibuster is the political version of twerking. And for those people who say, Ted Cruz, he hung himself, no. Just like Miley Cyrus, she came out the winner in that. Everybody said, oh, she's ruined her career. She's on the cover of Rolling Stone. Her records are outselling anybody else's. I think Ted Cruz is going to be the winner, too.
So, I'm not sure that I agree with Bill Maher that Senator Ted Cruz is going to come out a winner from all this, because he's certainly getting a lot of high-profile ridicule, including the first parody of Ted Cruz on Saturday Night Live that I can remember, where he was played by Taran Killlam, with Jay Pharoah playing Barack Obama in the introductory segment on Saturday Night Live that included this clip.
Is there anyone here with something serious to say about the new healthcare system?
I'm Senator Ted Cruz, and I do not like you in a box. I do not like you with a fox.
Oh, no, not more Dr. Seuss. Come on.
I speak for the trees, because the trees do not speak. But if they could speak, they would say, shut down the federal government.
Security.
Horton may hear who, but the only thing I'm hearing right now is socialism!
So, Ted Cruz, as shown in that clip, is definitely taking the rap for wanting to shut down the government. And you know, that was a parody of him. He read Green Eggs and Ham during his 21-hour non-filibuster filibuster. And as several people have pointed out already, the Dr. Seuss book Green Eggs and Ham is actually about someone who irrationally refuses to try something that it turns out after he tries it, he really likes it. And I'll talk a little bit, I'll show you a clip from Bill Clinton, sort of not talking about Green Eggs and Ham, but talking about Obamacare in how Obamacare may actually be a success and Republicans are rooting for failure. But before I do that, I wanted to show you Ted Cruz himself, who appeared on NBC's Meet the Press, and despite him getting the rap on Saturday Night Live for wanting to shut down the government, he was doing his best to try to blame the shutdown on President Obama, as you can see here.
Just voted to do. And one important thing to emphasize, I mean, you keep, and all of the voices of Washington keep saying, we need compromise. Twice now, Republicans in the House have compromised, and twice Harry Reid has said, we won't even have a conversation. I refuse to compromise. We want to fund it all. We want to stick it on the American people, and we won't budge. That's not a reasonable position, and if we have a shutdown, it will be because Harry Reid holds that absolutist position and essentially holds the American people hostage.
Who is the
So, yeah, there you can see Ted Cruz trying to make the argument that he's not the one trying to shut down the government, that it's Harry Reid. I guess it wasn't President, although in another clip he talked about President Obama, but there he's blaming Harry Reid for the absolutist position on shutting down the government. And let me add in the next three clips here real quick. In the next one, I wanted to show you David Gregory, from the host of NBC's Meet the Press, kind of challenging Senator Ted Cruz on his assertion that he's following the will of the American people, because there's a lot of conflicting polls on that, and there was a recent poll showing that a majority of Americans actually want to uphold Obamacare, and I'll show you how Ted Cruz responded to that in this clip.
Saying that the Senate and the House should listen to the American people. I looked at polling this week that shows in a lot of quarters the bill is unpopular, the law is unpopular. 56% want to uphold this law. So when you say listen to the American people, they're not necessarily with you.
Well, look at the phrasing of that. Uphold this law. I promise you, if you do any poll on do you want to uphold this law, the answer is always yes.
So it's just polling methodology?
Look, there are a lot of polls that are done for advocacy purposes. I promise you, any single senator who goes home to his or her state, any representative that goes home to his or her state, and you hold a town hall, and you just ask people, what are you facing? I mean, I've spent hundreds of hours crisscrossing the state of Texas, traveling nationally, and people all over the country, they're losing their jobs, they're being forced into part-time work, they're facing skyrocketing health insurance premiums, and they're losing their health insurance.
We'll get into...
So yeah, there's Senator Ted Cruz. That's basically the argument that he's been making, and he's trying to say again that the shutdown is the Democratic Party not listening to the American people. And I want to show you one more clip on that. Rand Paul, Senator Rand Paul, was over on Face the Nation, and he was basically also trying to make the same argument. And I want to show you the point that Rand Paul made on Face the Nation in this clip.
See, he already, by executive fiat, has delayed the employer mandate, which is a key component of this. We think that is going outside the Constitution and that the president's not allowed to write legislation. So all we're asking is, if he thinks it's so messed up that he's going to delay a big part of Obamacare on his own, and it looks like maybe he's going to do some special favors for the unions, why don't we actually bring it to Congress and try to figure out how to meet somewhere in the middle? But see, he's saying 100% of Obamacare or the highway. The president's the one saying, I will shut down government if you don't give me everything I want on Obamacare. That to me is the president being intransigent and being unwilling to compromise.
But the
So yeah, that is kind of the Republican argument I've been seeing, is that they are willing to compromise because they're not saying shut down the government or defund Obamacare, or that's their position, but they're willing to negotiate and come up with something less somehow. And of course, they never kind of really explain why it is that this law that's already been passed should be tied to whether the government remains open. And also, and here I'll show you Paul Krugman over on This Week with George Stephanopoulos kind of made the point that what they're doing isn't really negotiation, and I'll show you that clip here.
Do it in the normal course of things. That negotiating is, you give us something, we want, we'll give you something you want. Everybody wants the debt limit raised because nobody wants the financial catastrophe. So saying, give us what we want in return for not provoking this catastrophe, which will hurt everybody, that's not a negotiation.
So how does this...
So yeah, I don't really think that, I think what he's really talking about there is extortion. It's not a negotiation, it's extortion. We'll shut down the government unless you give us what we want. And I actually saw Chris Matthews, MSNBC, he's a commentator, has that show Hardball with Chris Matthews on MSNBC. He was over on NBC's Meet the Press, and I thought he made, hold on a sec while I add in the next 3 clips here. I thought he made an even more stark contrast between negotiation and what the Republicans are doing regarding the government shutdown and Obamacare over in this clip.
I think we're in an explosive situation in terms of a constitution. I think it's going to continue. I'm not as sublime as you are. I think the difference is, it's like in a kidnapping. You grab the baby and ask for the money. In this case, they've grabbed the money and asked for the baby. Obama's not going to give him his baby. You can't negotiate this. This is the thing Diddy pointed out. This is his claim to history. This is what he did after 40 or 50 years of Democratic Party claim. We're going to do health care. The Clintons tried, almost got it. Everybody said we're going to do it since Roosevelt. To say I'm going to give it away or I'm going to delay it, I think delaying it, everybody knows the people who want delay do not want it to come back in a year. You want it to die in a year. And that's the difference between the president having problems with some of the features of the bill but trying to make it work, and those who want to kill it. That's a big difference, killing the baby here. And I don't think he's going to agree to it.
We're going to be...
So yeah, I enjoyed that analogy even more, and I think instead of like taking the baby and asking for money, I like that idea that they're taking the money and asking for the baby, because Obamacare is definitely President Obama's baby. It's his legacy, and to expect him to give it up or shut down the government, that isn't really negotiation. At least that's my opinion in my commentary here. And another big problem is that the leadership in the House of Representatives has pretty much disappeared. This is all being run by Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Mike Lee, who are like the Tea Party Republicans in the Senate, and John Boehner, the supposed Speaker of the House. There's been stories about how Mike Lee and Ted Cruz have been lobbying conservative members of the House of Representatives on the floor of the House of Representatives and telling them not to follow their leadership. And I think there is some question as to whether there even is any leadership amongst the Republicans in the House of Representatives. And I thought, I try not to show commentators too much or pundits discussion. I try to show just the newsmakers here on LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. But every now and then, some pundits, like that last Chris Matthews clip, say something that's really poignant, or hear David Ignatious talking over on Face the Nation, commenting on how Boehner has kind of given up the mantle of leadership in the House of Representatives. And I'll show you that clip here.
Sadly, we're watching the collapse of John Boehner as a House Speaker, a complete inability to lead his Republican members towards some kind of clear legislative strategy. He doesn't want a government shutdown. He knows it's going to hurt the party. It's unpopular with the country, but he can't find a way to speak to his members. I think back, Bob, to when he appeared on your show in July, and you were in a discussion with him and tried to get him to say on TV that he supported immigration reform, which he's well known to support, and he wouldn't do it. He said, I'll just get myself in trouble if I say this or that, and it's not about me. And you saw a man who really was pulling back from what leadership is. You as much as said that to him. I think that's part of the problem where we are.
It's almost
So yeah, that clip he's talking about from July, I actually featured that clip on LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. I think it was July 21st. If you're not watching this live, if you're watching this as a recorded show of my live broadcast, I'm going to put a link in here, and you can see where it was that John Boehner kind of gave up his role as leader of the House and became sort of what Bob Schieffer said after that comment was, he's kind of like the spokesman for the House of Representatives, but he doesn't take a position and doesn't take leadership. And I don't know, maybe it's because it's impossible to lead both the Tea Party Republicans in the House of Representatives along with the establishment Republicans. And but there seems to be a much more unified position over on the Democratic side. And I want to show you Senator Dick Durbin was over on Face the Nation also, and he talked about what he thought should happen, and if there was, grown-ups on both sides, anyway, this is what should happen, at least from the Democratic perspective, from Senator Dick Durbin on Face the Nation in this clip.
What can be done at this point to not shut down the government?
We've sent from the Senate a clean CR, no strings attached. We didn't demand the immigration bill pass or anything like that. A clean CR to keep the government in business and not hurt the economy. Ultimately, that's what we should do. And I hope when it comes to the debt ceiling, we'll do the same thing. Extend the debt ceiling without endangering the economy. Then, if the Republicans want to sit down and go into serious, good faith negotiations over any aspect of government, that's how it should take place.
All right.
So yeah, that's what should happen, but of course I don't think that's what's going to happen. With the way the House of Representatives has been going, and Ted Cruz and Mike Lee over in the Senate, and the Tea Party Republicans have pretty much made it a certainty that there's going to be at least a couple days or at least a short period of a government shutdown. And on that point, I want to show you. Here, hold on, let me load up the 3 clips here, and I'll show you over on This Week with George Stephanopoulos. their White House correspondent, Jonathon Karl, basically said there was a 99.9% chance of a government shutdown at this point, and I'll show you that clip here.
That's right, George. Positions have hardened. Time is running out. I would now put the chances of a government shutdown at 99.9%. It was after midnight at a raucous session last night that the House did what they did. The bill, what it would actually do, it would fund the government until December. It would delay Obamacare for 1 year, and it would repeal a tax on medical devices that's part of the health care law. They also separately passed a provision that would fund the troops regardless of a government shutdown. The White House response was swift, George, to Jay Carney saying, today Republicans in the House of Representatives moved to shut down the government. And it's hard to disagree with that because the Senate absolutely will not pass what just passed in the House. And George, the Senate doesn't get back into session until 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. That is 10 hours before the government shuts down.
So they said...
So yeah, it sounds pretty much like the government is going to shut down, at least for a little while, because the Senate's going to only has like a few hours to send back something that doesn't defund Obamacare, and the House is supposedly going to send something back again, and the reason that this government shutdown is going to hurt the Republicans, later I'm going to show you some Fox News bias covering this whole issue, but even over on Fox News, their senior analyst, Brit Hume, couldn't spin this as a government shutdown is benefiting Republicans, or at least he gave the warning based on his experience reporting on the last time the government shut down, which was, what, like 17 years ago in 95 and 96. And anyway, here's how Brit Hume explained what he thought would happen with the government shutdown on Fox News Sunday this morning here.
There never has been. And I must tell you that as one who covered the shutdowns in 95, 96 as a White House correspondent, I was stunned by the reaction. The Republican Party was in much better odor with the public then than it is now. Newt Gingrich was newly elected Speaker. Republicans were riding high. Big government had a bad name, much as it does now. And when the government shut down as a result of spending cuts that President Clinton refused to accept and vetoed a bill to keep the government open, I thought that he'd get much of the blame, if not most of it. It was just the opposite. The public absolutely hated the shutdown. Now, Ted Cruz and company argue that it's all different this time. I must say I have my doubts, Chris. I think the Republicans will get blamed, and it will be very painful for them. And this could be a game changer for the forthcoming congressional elections. That's what I think the leaders on the Hill are worried about, that government shutdowns are political poison.
And, I think that is really important to remember. That's, I think, why President Obama has full latitude to not negotiate and be intransigent, what Rand Paul and Ted Cruz were complaining about, because I think that he believes, and most analysts believe, and I also believe, that if there is a government shutdown, it only benefits President Obama versus the Republican Congress. I think as things stand right now, there is a very slight chance that the Democrats can take back the House of Representatives in the 2014 congressional elections. But if there's a government shutdown, if President Obama can hold up the Republican Congress as hurting the United States economy for these weird partisan reasons, the chances of the Democrats taking back the Congress in 2014 go up a significant amount. And so I think President Obama, in his own way, he does want a government shutdown, because I think it would benefit his chance to get a Democratic House of Representatives in 2014. And that is also doesn't make it doesn't seem to make much sense that the Republicans would want a government shutdown, or why would they be playing this brinksmanship when even Brit Hume admits that the Fox News senior analyst there admits that a government shutdown is going to hurt the Republicans and maybe even lose them the House of Representatives in 2014. But the reason for it is because I think they may be more scared about Obamacare not failing. They've been warning the American people for years that Obamacare or that some sort of universal health care, and of course Obamacare isn't quite universal health care, but that some kind of healthcare program passed at the national level would be a disaster. And now that it's been passed and a lot of people might find it beneficial, they're extremely worried about that. And I want to show you former President Bill Clinton talking about that over on This Week with George Stephanopoulos in this clip.
Results. Look, they are desperate for this bill to fail. Because if it's not a failure, everything they've been telling us since 1980, that government's bad, it's wrong. They so badly want it to fail. I've never seen a time. Can you remember a time in your lifetime when a major political party was just sitting around begging for America to fail? I don't know what's going to happen, but I'll be shocked if it fails. I just think that when all these dire predictions don't come out, if they don't, I believe that pretty soon, within the next several years, this will be like Medicare and Medicaid, and it'll be a normal part of our life, and people will be glad it's there.
And a big plus the next election.
Yeah.
And I know you...
So, yeah, I think that is possibly what the Republicans are really worried about, why they're taking this last-ditch effort to stop Obamacare from going into effect, because despite, you know, the glitches that may occur and some of the problems with the implementation, as the exchanges open up on October 1st and it actually goes into effect January 1st of next year, a lot more people are going to be able to get affordable health care. They're going to be able to shop on these exchanges and possibly find policies that better meet their needs. And of course, insurance companies are no longer going to be able to kick adults off or deny adults coverage because of pre-existing conditions. They've already the law has already stopped them from denying children, and there are all these other benefits of Obamacare. And so I definitely agree with what Bill Clinton said there. And let me load up. And there were some other discussions about possible positive effects of Obamacare. Over on Real Time with Bill Maher, I thought it was kind of amusing. There was this back and forth between hold on a second, let me add in the next 3 clips here real quick. There was this back and forth between Matt Welch, who works for Reason magazine and just wrote this book on independence, so he's kind of like a libertarian conservative. And he was arguing with Bill Maher about whether there was going to be a cost to Obamacare. And wait, hold on. Let me load in the last clip here of the next 3. 13, 14. And so, and then Robert Reich, who used to be labor secretary under Clinton and is now a professor of economics over at UC Berkeley, he kind of mediated the dispute about whether Obamacare was going to cost money or save money for the American people, and I'll show you that clip here.
That was the problem, that he couldn't just sell it that way. He felt it was patently dishonest about the way this program was sold from the beginning, saying that it wouldn't add to the deficit by 1 single dime, right? Saying that if you like your health care plan...
Well, we don't know that it will.
We know that it will.
No, we don't know.
We know at this point that it will.
Wait a minute. I'll play mediator here.
Yeah, thanks.
We know that it won't. But
and that's true. If you look at some of the clips I showed last week, the Republican budget depends on Obamacare actually increasing revenues and saving money. All the Medicare savings from Obamacare are in the Republican budget. All of the revenues from Obamacare are in the Republican budget. And you know, this continuing resolution that the House Republicans just passed, that they've sent to the Senate, that funds the government but defunds Obamacare, it also gets rid of this medical devices tax, but it doesn't come up with the revenues. That actually removes $30 billion from the budget. There are a lot of ways. If you look at some of my videos from around when Obamacare was passed, you'll see that I showed analyses that Obamacare in the first 10 years saved some money, and then in the second 10 years it saves like $1 trillion, or I can't even remember the amount. But Obamacare, because it includes these increased taxes and it has these cost savings. I agree with Robert Reich there. It's definitely going to save money, and there are other positive impacts from Obamacare. And I saw this interesting back and forth between Governor Howard Dean, who once ran for president and is also a physician, over on the CNN program State of the Union with Candy Crowley. She had Howard Dean, who is a doctor, and then Senator John Barrasso, who is also a doctor, talking about the effects of Obamacare. And Howard Dean said that there was this possible unintended consequence that it would free up small businesses not to have to offer health care to their employees because they can send them over to the exchanges. And I'll show you that clip here.
The other people who are going to benefit, which we haven't talked about, I think, and this is an unintended consequence of the law, is small businesses. Because small businesses are going to dump their employees into the exchange. I think that's a good thing. John McCain proposed it in his 2008 campaign to separate employment from health insurance. That's something the conservatives have wanted to do for a long time until recently, and I think that's going to happen as a result of this bill.
Howard.
So yeah, I think that is an important point, that small businesses may be able to not have to do the costly problem of offering health care to their employees, and separating health care from employment actually would be a good effect of Obamacare, possibly, though Senator John Barrasso, he's like harped on the employers are going to dump their employees part of that. And I'll show you that clip here.
I mean, this is my life, right? So,
wait,
the large companies.
Hold on,
and
sorry.
high-end.
I loaded up the wrong clip there. Let me see if I can get the. That was the next. John, hold on one second here. Little technical difficulty there, but. So yeah, I believe, is this the John Barrasso clip?
Howard just said small businesses are going to dump their employees who are they're currently paying for their health insurance, dump them onto the exchange, dump them onto taxpayer subsidies. Now think about that. The president said if you like what you have, you can keep it. There are people all around the country who like the insurance that they have and can't keep it because, as Howard said, they're going to get dumped into the exchanges. And the people that are going to pay the most, who are going to be most abused by this, are the young people, those who are going to be forced to pay more than they would based on their own risk to subsidize others.
See, I think this bill.
Howard just says.
So yeah, that was the John Barrasso clip where he says, yeah, they're going to be dumped onto the exchanges, but the thing is, they may actually be able to get better coverage on the exchanges than they could get from these small businesses, and it frees up small businesses to be able to compete with the larger businesses and the big corporations. And that was the clip I almost showed you by mistake before, and I'll show you that clip here.
Businesses are going to dump their employees who are their.
This is my life, right? So the large companies and high-end small businesses are not going to dump their people into the exchange. Low-end businesses who struggle to pay for health insurance are going to want to do that. So what you're going to see is a leveling of the playing field in the small business community between those who can afford it and can't. But those with highly paid small businesses or large businesses, Fortune 500, are not going to do this because they use health care benefits as an attraction to really attractive employees. So I think the system it's in the private sector. The benefit of that is that you're going to see the flexibility and the ingenuity of the private sector sculpt this thing in some ways that none of the people who voted for it ever expected.
So that's kind of an interesting analysis there, that small businesses are going to be able to not have to take on the cost of providing health care to their employees, so they'll better be able to compete with larger businesses. And I think there are going to be a lot of choices on these exchanges, and that is what the Republicans are trying to stop from happening. It's kind of, maybe it should be called the green eggs and ham effect, where they want to have people hate the green eggs and ham without ever trying them, because once they try it, I like them, Sam, I am, or whoever that story ends up. And so having shown all those clips there on sort of the more legitimate debate on Obamacare and the government shutdown, I wanted to show you a few clips from how Fox News Sunday gave kind of a more biased presentation of the whole issue. First, they had the House Republican whip, Kevin McCarthy, on, and I kind of enjoyed the way that Chris Wallace, he kind of played into the Republican talking points about how they won't negotiate with the Republicans. Obama won't negotiate with the Republicans, but he's willing to negotiate with Iran. Although he did kind of challenge him a little bit. But anyway, I'll show you the first Fox News bias clip on this issue I wanted to play right here.
Finally, you got two deadlines in the next month. First of all, on October 1st, as we have pointed out, the government runs out of money. We have the possibility of a shutdown. Then, as you can see there, on October 17th, we bump up against the debt limit, and the president swears he will not negotiate on that. Take a look.
I will not negotiate on anything when it comes to the full faith and credit of the United States of America.
Now, as you point out, at the same time he's refusing to negotiate on that, he has just opened diplomatic talks with the Iranians. But I want to put up a list of the measures that you guys want to add, and let's put them up on the screen, to if the conditions for adding to an increase in the debt limit: a one-year delay in Obamacare, tax reform, build the Keystone Pipeline, limit environmental regulations. The White House says you guys want to attach the entire Republican platform to raising the debt limit. Isn't that over the top?
No, we want to grow jobs. We want America to start working again. How is that crazy? When did it come in America that creating jobs was something wrong? And look, for one point, he'll spend the time talking to everybody else, but he's not listening to the American people. The Bloomberg poll just came out that 61% of Americans want him to negotiate on where we're going on our debt. Look at the addition since he's become in to the debt, $17 trillion. That's more than our entire economy. Why won't he sit
$17 trillion isn't his.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it, 8 or 9 million of it is his.
But why isn't he negotiating? He'll negotiate everywhere else, but he won't sit and focus on what is happening in America today?
So yeah, I enjoyed that clip. That was sort of like Chris Wallace, who is one of the more, or one of the less biased, supposedly straight news anchors on Fox News. You can see how he sort of goes back and forth there. He plays into the Republican talking point about Obama not negotiating with Republicans but being willing to negotiate with Iran. But he also challenged Representative McCarthy there when he said that Obama was responsible for $17 trillion of debt. But then again, of course, he said that Obama was responsible for 8 or 9 trillion, which is a little bit debatable as well. But there were definitely both. Oh, and then of course he challenged the Republicans there for wanting to basically put their entire platform as what they're trying to get Obama to agree to before they'll raise the debt limit, as if, you know, President Obama won the election, but what Mitt Romney was trying to get, or his platform, is somehow going to be what is going to be passed and signed by the president. It doesn't really make that much sense. But so in that Chris Wallace question to Republican whip Kevin McCarthy, I thought there was a little bit of back and forth there between being biased and unbiased. But then I saw Chris Wallace do this thing that I only see happen on Fox News, where they ask a partisan person a question, and the question just plays into that partisan person's talking points. I mean, usually if you look on the other Sunday morning shows, you'll see they'll ask a Democratic question, and they'll ask him, you know, how do you respond to this Republican talking point? And they'll ask a Republican a question and say, how do you respond to this Democratic talking point? But over on Fox News, and I've done a bunch of videos on this over the years, that's the only place I see. I mean, occasionally maybe on some of the more opinion-oriented MSNBC shows, maybe like the Hardball with Chris Matthews. But generally, in the more straight news programs, the only place I see this is on Fox News, where they ask a Republican a question that plays into the Republican talking points. And I'll show you two examples of that with Chris Wallace asking Senator Mike Lee questions that basically just played into his talking points. First on whether Obamacare, hold on, one quick question, let's see, on whether Obamacare, well, anyway, I'll show you a question. Here's the first bias question that plays into, was this the one on jobs or on premiums? And well, it's one or the other. We'll see in this clip.
Well, I understand that. All right, the premiums people will have to pay. Here's what the president promised.
They said that these rates would come in real high and everybody's premiums would be sky high, and it turns out, lo and behold, actually, the prices came in lower than we expected, lower than I predicted.
But the reality is more complicated. While older folks may pay less, let's take the example of a 27-year-old non-smoker in Philadelphia who now pays $73 a month. And he will pay $195 a month under the cheapest Obamacare plan. Senator Lee, in addition to the fact that under some of these plans, which just came out this last week, people will pay higher premiums, they also are going to have big deductibles, as much as $5,000 a year.
Big deductibles, high premiums.
So yeah, there you can see Fox News asking a question that plays right into the Republican talking point about big deductibles and high premiums. And a lot of that information, there are actually a lot of places where Obamacare seems to be coming in, what President Obama said, is coming in lower than expectation on the premiums. Here in California, we seem to be setting up a really good system, and a lot of the problems have to do with Republican governors who are refusing to implement Obamacare, even to the detriment of their own people. And I also want to show you a second example. That was on premiums. This is over on the question of jobs. He also kind of played right, Chris Wallace, the supposedly straight Fox News anchor of Fox News Sunday, played right into the Republican talking points, asking Senator Mike Lee a question about how Obamacare is affecting jobs in this clip.
Under Obamacare, any employer with more than 50 full-time workers must provide coverage in 2015, must provide under the employer mandate, or pay a penalty. And full-time is defined as 30 hours a week or more. President Obama says that won't be a problem.
They said this would be a disaster in terms of jobs. There's no widespread evidence that the Affordable Care Act is hurting jobs.
But a study this week found 313 companies, 313 are either laying off workers or cutting their hours to avoid the Obamacare employer mandate. Senator Lee.
This is yet another example of what happens in Washington. As we say, the bullet points are very different than the bill, and that's
jobs. Under Obamacare.
So yeah, there you can see again that Chris Wallace just played right into the Republican talking point about jobs. And if you look at that Investors Business Daily, so I didn't have time to put a link to that, but it isn't a study. It's just like a list of companies where, and of course, Investors Business Daily is a Wall Street publication for Wall Street investors, and of course, it has a certain point of view, and it's not a study. They're actually like asking people, tell us all your companies that might be having problems or job cuts from Obamacare, and it's not any kind of empirical scientific study in that sense. So that was kind of ridiculous, and so that was like the Fox News bias on it. And anyway, before I leave the whole shutdown, Ted Cruz filibuster, Obamacare debate, I want to show you one more clip from Saturday Night Live, last night's Saturday Night Live season premiere, where Seth Meyers over on Weekend Update also kind of satirized what Ted Cruz has been doing in this clip.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz this week gave a 21-hour speech on the floor of the Senate, during which he read Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham, did an impression of Darth Vader, and admitted his love for White Castle. I'm not sure what Cruz's speech was arguing for, but I'm guessing legalizing weed?
So yeah, that's another example of Ted Cruz getting ridicule for what he's done in the U.S. Senate this last week. And I think he may have gotten himself a little farther with the base. And of course, the base of the Republican Party is who decides who the presidential nominee is going to be in 2016. But I think he's, really hurt himself with the more general public. But he doesn't seem to be thinking that far ahead. In fact, I'm not even sure what the end game for this whole government shutdown and defund Obamacare movement is supposed to be. But I guess we'll find out in the next few days, because October 1st, Tuesday, there is no more funding for the federal government, and there are like 800,000 federal workers who are going to be furloughed, and there'll be a definite economic effect. And then that all bleeds into the I think October 17th is the day that the Congress has to raise the debt limit, or the United States will default on its debt, and that would have even worse consequences. So I don't know where this is going. I hope the Republicans start being more adult, more grown up about these problems. But on the other hand, they haven't really shown a lot of past proclivity for acting in an adult manner. So maybe they will really just shut the government down and destroy their own credibility even further, and open up the possibility of the Democrats winning the House of Representatives in 2014. That would be, I couldn't ask for anything more than for what the Republicans seem to be doing, but I guess we'll have to see. So I wanted to also show that those are all the clips I wanted to show on the government shutdown and Ted Cruz and the Obamacare debate and all of that from the Sunday morning shows and Saturday Night Live and Real Time with Bill Maher. But I wanted to also show you four quick clips on the big opening between Iran and the United States over the last week. Both President Obama and the new president of Iran gave speeches at the UN, and then the United States Secretary of State met with the foreign minister of Iran, and it looks like there's going to be some kind of opening. And this all follows the election of a new, more moderate president, President Rouhani in Iran. And even though the Ayatollah still kind of the Ayatollah controls the government of Iran, there's definitely a big change between this president and the previous president, Ahmadinejad. And when the current president was in New York to give his speech, he also gave this off-the-record interview to a bunch of journalists, including Fareed Zakaria from CNN's program Fareed Zakaria GPS. And even though it was off the record, there were some parts that he could talk about, and I wanted to show you what he said about that interview, and at least what the new president of Iran is, what his talking points or what his position is he's trying to get out to the media over in this clip.
Discussed. The meeting was off the record, but we were allowed to share some observations. I was struck by Rouhani's optimism on the nuclear issue, which he said could be resolved in a very short time. The world wants to be assured that our program is peaceful, he said, and we want to help them gain that confidence. Rouhani also admitted that the economic sanctions against his country had taken a heavy toll, denying people food and medicine. He suggested that both the United States and Iran had made miscalculations, but that, he said, was in the past. He was hopeful about better relations.
So yeah, that is the message that the new president of Iran is trying to get out there. And I think that part about the sanctions is, there have been these sanctions on Iran for a long time, and that may be what's pushing them to the table. And I also want to, this is the first time that a U.S. president has talked to an Iranian president since the Carter administration. And over on Face the Nation, they had National Security Advisor from the Carter administration, Zbignew Brezinski, and he kind of gave his analysis of who the new president of Iran represents. Even though they don't really have free elections in Iran, he does represent some of the Iranian people. And I'm showing you that clip here.
What's he up to?
Well, he clearly is an alternative choice, and I don't think he was the initial choice of the preponderant Ayatollah. But the Iranian public, particularly urban public, I think has sent everyone a message. They're tired of the confrontation. They're suffering from it. They would like it to be ended. They would like it to be ended reasonably and honorably. And we have to take into account the fact that this is a significant historical nation that has lasted for 3,000 years, has a glorious history. It's not a crazy nation. It's not a suicidal nation. It's a very divided nation because there is an urban, Western-type intelligentsia, middle class in Iran, and there is also the rural areas that are much more fundamentalist, sectarian, and anti-Western.
So yeah, even though Iran is not a democracy, there's still definite political factions, and even a dictator, you know, supreme religious leader has to worry about, you know, Arab Spring type events. And of course, before the Arab Spring, there was sort of an Iranian uprising that didn't go very far, but though, you know, there's a very young urban population in Iran that they have to worry about. And so that's kind of the division in Iran. Also, over on This Week with George Stephanopoulos, they had the foreign minister from Iran on, and they confronted him with what U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said on 60 Minutes. That's going to be aired tonight, or could be airing right now for all I know, depending on where you are. But it kind of shows John Kerry was talking about what the United States is looking for from this diplomacy, and then you can see the foreign minister, I think his name is Mohammed Javan Zarif. He kind of responds, and he says, of course, what Iran most wants is to get rid of these sanctions. And so you can kind of see the position of the United States, the starting position of the United States versus the starting position of Iran over on This Week with George Stephanopoulos in this clip.
Secretary Kerry, in an interview that's going to air tonight, has laid out some concrete steps that Iran could take in order to prove they don't want a nuclear weapon. Here's what he had to say.
They could immediately open up inspection of the Fordow facility. They could immediately sign the protocols, the additional protocols of the international community regarding inspections. They could offer to cease enrichment above a certain level.
Is Iran prepared to do that?
Well, Iran is prepared to start negotiating. I'm sure Secretary Kerry does not want to dictate to us what we should or shouldn't do. We are willing to engage in negotiations. Of course, the United States also needs to do certain things very rapidly. What do you need from the U.S.? One is to dismantle its illegal sanctions against Iran that are targeting ordinary Iranians. Now, in spite of all the claims to the contrary, it is impossible to open a letter of credit from a bank to buy medicine for Iranian patients because there has been, in fact, blind sanctions against banks dealing with Iran. There has been a lot of arms twisting by the United States, not by the entire government, by certain elements within the U.S. government, which have tried to put pressure on ordinary Iranian people. And the ordinary Iranian people showed during the last election that they put their trust in the ballot box, they put their trust in the government, they want the government to deal with the rest of the world from a position of strength through flexibility, but insisting on the right. And so sanctions are not useful tool of implementing policy, and the United States needs to change that.
I understand.
So yeah, there is the Iranian foreign minister responding to Secretary of State John Kerry, talking all about a verifiable, transparent end to the Iranian nuclear program by talking about getting rid of these illegal sanctions, or the sanctions that are on Iran. So those are the two positions of the United States and of Iran about what's going to be happening in these negotiations. And so they have two very different goals from these negotiations, but like we were talking about in the whole, that quote I showed from Paul Krugman earlier about the government shutdown Obamacare debate, that's what a negotiation is. You give me something I want, I give you something you want, and this into the as to whether that's actually going to happen, and the negotiations between the United States and Iran remains to be seen. But if you want to know where the negotiations are going to be going next, National Security Advisor Susan Rice was over on Fareed Zakaria's GPS on CNN, and she was basically talking about what's going to happen next in the U.S.-Iranian negotiations in this final clip here.
What happened earlier this week is that Secretary Kerry, joined by the foreign ministers of Russia and China, the UK, France, and Germany, met, and of course the EU chief negotiator Cathy Ashton met for the first time at the foreign minister level with the new Iranian foreign minister. That was a constructive discussion, but it really was a scene setter in which the Iranians underscored their commitment not to pursue a nuclear weapon, but peaceful nuclear energy, where we and others underscored that Iran had to meet its international obligations under Security Council resolutions, and that the sanctions would remain until those obligations were satisfied. And yet both sides also committed to continue the diplomacy this month, or next month rather, in mid-October in Geneva, where the negotiations will begin in earnest, and the sides will have the opportunity to pick up where they left off some months ago, hopefully with a new Iranian negotiating position, and one that is consistent with the message that President Rouhani delivered across New York this week, which is that they sense a degree of urgency to resolving this, that they are indeed committed to doing so at the negotiating table, and that they only seek nuclear power for peaceful purposes. Obviously, we and others in the international community have every reason to be skeptical of that, and we need to test it, and any agreement must be fully verifiable and enforceable.
So yeah, that'll be really interesting on October 17th to see if the concrete negotiating position that Iran presents in Geneva to the United States backs up this supposed thaw. And after President Obama seems to have been able to resolve the Syria question that was the big topic of several previous Liberal Viewer Sunday Live clip roundups, without going to war or bombing anybody, it would be really nice to see if the Obama administration could actually resolve this whole nuclear question with Iran without bombing anyone, or without Israel bombing anyone. And you know, it gives me a little bit of hope that there may be peaceful solutions to these problems that previously seemed like they had an almost inevitable military component, or there was going to be some sort of military action by the United States or Israel or somebody. So I have showed you all the clips I wanted to show you from the Sunday morning shows and from the quasi-news shows, Real Time with Bill Maher and last night's season premiere of Saturday Night Live. I want to take some quick comments from you all who are watching live in the comment section. See if I can get a little live discussion going here, at least in like these last 5 minutes here. Let me see. Start off with let's see, Simiols asked me, do you think Obama is partly responsible for the Republicans' brinkmanship with the shutdown because he has caved in the past and negotiated over the debt ceiling? Yeah, I would say that. But on the other hand, I think that one of the reasons that Obama has set up the Republicans is that, and I think there are polls that bear this out, that he is seen by the American people as much more willing to negotiate since he has caved in the past, and the Republicans have at least publicly been less seen as willing to negotiate or give in. I think that in a way helps him. And I mean, at this point, like I said, I think in some ways President Obama is hoping that the Republicans don't cave, because I think it is his real only chance for getting a Democratic Congress in the 2014 elections. Cherry Dog 9 asks, what will be the eventual destiny of the GOP in relation to Tea Party lunatics? Well, I don't know if they're going to take it over or if they're going to die off. I just, it depends on how the whole primary system works. I mean, the thing is that the Tea Party is really successful in the primaries because a lot of the way the House of Representatives is gerrymandered, most of the representatives have safe districts, and so the Tea Party can be really successful in making candidates move to the right so they don't get a primary challenge, because that's really the only challenge they have to worry about in their safe district. So that gives them a long life, and it's going to be very difficult for the Tea Party to die out with that kind of primary system. The only big challenge to them, and I didn't, there was a clip I decided not to take, but I saw somebody on one of the Sunday morning shows talking about, it was, what is his name, Arthur Davis, who used to be a Democrat from some other state and then switched to the Republican Party, and he was talking about how what the Republicans need is a moderate Republican leader to be in contrast to the Tea Party, and maybe that'll come up in the 2016 elections. Maybe it could be Chris Christie, or one of the other non-Tea Party people who's challenging the Tea Party. That there'll be someone in the Republican Party who can show up the Tea Party Republicans as being irrational and as being a better choice. And I mean, if anything's going to end the Tea Party, that's what it will be. But at least without a national leader challenging the Tea Party in all the district by district races, they have a big advantage, because most of those, like I said, are safe districts, and all they have to worry about is a primary challenge, not a general election challenge. Let's see, Kobanizer says, I disagree with Maher a lot. For example, he's an anti-vaxxer. Yeah, I mean, if you watch my produced, edited videos about Bill Maher, you'll see that I disagree with him a lot too, and certainly on the vaccination question I do. Let me see if I can find. Oh, it looks like you're starting to argue with each other, which I always like, but I want to take one or two more questions. I'm getting up to the 1 hour mark here. Let's see. Abnormal Wrench says Obamacare leads to dogs and cats living together. Well, I think that's kind of amusing, but let's see, any more serious comments here before I let's see. Kobanizer says a shutdown isn't voted in, it's what happens when there is no budget. Well, I mean, it depends on whether there's a clean, there's no budget, but then there's the continuing resolution, and the question is whether there's going to be a continuing resolution with all these conditions, and after the government shutdown, actually, probably, as I showed in the clips, Jonathon Karl said it's like 99.9%, and I mean, it looks like it's going to happen at least for a couple days. So the government shutdown is going to happen not because of no budget, but because of no continuing resolution. But the real showdown is going to come October 17th, when the debt limit is reached. And for those who don't know, the debt limit is Congress has already spent all this money, and in order to pay for the money that Congress has already spent, the United States has to raise the maximum amount of debt that it can incur. So it's already spent the money, but we just have to pay the money, and if the United States doesn't raise the debt limit, that's a default, and that could lead to a huge economic catastrophe. And I mean, I can't even believe that any responsible politician would negotiate on that basis. But anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this edition of LiberalViewer Sunday Live Clip Roundup. Last week I also announced that I was working on a video, and it's actually almost done. That's my upcoming video, Fox News Forgot Bush Economic Meltdown Anniversary. And I think I should have that up within 24 hours. I announced it a little while ago, and some things came up, but I should be making that video. I have it mostly done, so it should be up either on Monday or Tuesday of this coming week. I I hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend, or for my European viewers, where it's already Monday, I hope you enjoy the beginning of your week. I'm going to go watch the series finale of Breaking Bad, or have some dinner and then do that, and I hope you all find some good ways to end your week, and I hope you enjoyed the clips I picked for you, and I'll see you next week for Liberal Viewer Sunday live clip roundup at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time.